May the 10th, 2020. Bible study on Sunday morning. God has blessed us with another day, another week. Of course, this is the first day of the week, and we're starting a new week today. I have a couple of people I want to mention in our prayers, if you would please. Tim West, we need to keep him in our prayers. Also, Julie Dolan. Also, Pat and Timmy Thomas. Sister Knox, Georgia Hancock. Let's see who else here I can see. How's Roxanne? How's Roxanne? Alive.
She must be kicking.
Okay. And there are others who we need to keep in our prayers this week, today. Pray that, please, that this whole virus thing goes away soon. It's affecting probably our families, affecting the economy. It's affecting church. It's affecting everything that we can think of one way or the other. And I pray that it will soon be over somehow. I'll be honest with you, I've heard this and I've heard that, and I don't know the person to whom I should listen. It's one day it's great, and the next day it's not. So it's very confusing. But let's pray that it will indeed get better. Anything else we need to mention before we have prayer?
Jerry Shepherd's cousin passed away on Friday.
Jerry Shepherd's cousin passed away Friday. So where did he live? She lived away from here, but she's going to be buried this afternoon. We're going to I guess it's graveside service. Okay. All right. Who else do we need to mention? All right, let's start with the prayer. I'm just going to ask Brother Ron Barone if he would lead us in prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this very beautiful day that you've given to us to gather together as brothers and sisters in Christ and worship you. Thank you, Father, for this day that's been set aside for Mother's Day. Thank you for all the mothers and all that they've done for the families and for the church. Ask that you be with each and every one of those that were mentioned, those that have lost the family members. There have been several in the church here recently. Be with them and give them strength. Be with Bobby as he stands before us and leads us in this class. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we're talking about how to build a great church, and I'm taking thoughts from the lesson that I'm giving from How to Build a Great Church by Mac Layton. It is a great book. Brother Layton died, sometimes in the 90s, I think, but his book carries on his name, in which he has done a great work in things. So we talked about what is our purpose. Did we talk about that last week? What is our purpose? We mentioned about the railroads, and they went bankrupt. You remember that? Early in the last century, and they were going and couldn't figure out what was going on. And as he relates in the story about the railroads, is that they had their focus in the wrong place, or their purpose in the wrong place. They thought that their business or their focus or their goal or their purpose was the railroad business. And he said it wasn't railroad business, it's the transportation business. And once they got back into the transportation business, then they started making money. And so we can lose focus. We lose focus on our purpose. And the Bible teaches that we have a purpose, or several purposes. Number one, to evangelize the whole world. Go into all the world, that is everywhere, and preach the gospel to every creature. Brother Thomas B. Warren said, all the world means every country in the world. All the world means every province in every country in the world. All the world means every country, every product, every city. And then he went on to say, and every street, and every house, and every door, and every person in that house. That covers, I think, pretty well detail what it means to go into all the world. So we need to keep ourselves in mind that our purpose is to preach and teach the gospel of Jesus. Anybody and everybody that we possibly can. And then we talked about to edify. What does edify mean? Build up, that's right. And how do we edify? How do we build up one another? Encouraging words? Is that the only way? Association? Is that the only way?
Being there for each other.
Okay, let me add one more to that, if you don't mind. Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I command you, lo, I'm with you always, even unto the end of the world, or the age. We are to edify by all the means of association, fellowship, and so forth, but we also have to keep on teaching. Ephesians 4:14 through 16 makes it clear that we are to edify by teaching and whatever each part can supply. Everybody can do something. Okay, it may be writing a letter, make a phone call, may whatever, but everybody can do something to help the church. And that's the idea that the church is edifying itself in love. And then we talked about benevolent work. What is benevolent work?
Helping somebody when they need it.
Helping people when they need it.
Their physical needs.
Their physical need. May I expand that a little bit, if it's okay? Would benevolence also helping people in their family problems? Excuse me? It would, wouldn't it? So I think when we look at benevolence, sometimes we kind of narrow it down by giving, maybe paying a bill or giving food, but it reaches further than that. We have opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially a household of faith. What does that good include? Is that a fair question? Okay, what does that good include? More than just food, right? Maybe helping somebody. They may have a problem at home, on their house, or on their steps, or whatever. You know, they may be sick and they need some help. So that's opportunities and many, many more that we can discuss about doing good or benevolence for people. Is that good? You know what really amazes me? The Samaritan man, the Good Samaritan. You know, he was on his way to down the road going to between Jerusalem and Jericho, and he got caught by some robbers. And what's this? They robbed him, and the Bible says they left him half dead. Apparently, he had some kind of goods. He had something, maybe money or whatever, but he needed help. And the Good Samaritan provided benevolent work. Took him to the inn, dressed him and took care of him, and paid his way along the way until he could get back on his, at least in this situation, on his feet. So yes, it goes on much more than that. And then we talked about building godly character. What is godly character? Yes, ma'am.
The best of humanity as described by
That's good. How do you go about doing that? That's right. That's good. Building God character. I think starting with our children. Teaching them about God. Not just mentioning God, but teaching them about God, who God is, and showing evidence of God. And in that way, teaching them to respect God, respect authority, respect the elders, respect the policemen, respect those who are godly people in government. I believe that's true all the way through. Is that correct? That's something that we should not and ever forget, that we're building godly character. Building an atmosphere where Christian life can grow. Atmosphere is a key word there. What does that mean? We discussed that, did we not? Yes, ma'am.
Everyone has to be made to feel so welcome, they want to come back.
That is very good. Atmosphere is the mood and the attitude of the environment of people, of the group, the church. We make up the atmosphere. Our attitude toward God, our attitude toward the Bible, our attitude toward one another, our attitude about serving and this, that, is building an atmosphere where people would want to come and participate. What's your thoughts? All right, here's what we need to remember. We have a purpose. Why do we exist? And we talked about the purpose. Now, having a purpose, and we talked about evangelism, how can we carry out the evangelistic responsibility of the church? That's one of the purposes of the church. How can we carry out evangelism specifically? Supporting missionary, that's a good way, yes. Any other ways? Yes, ma'am.
It's very easy if you've got Jesus in mind and you're walking with him. He's going to present you with people to talk to you about it. It's everywhere you go. You can meet people, talk about it, bring it in your conversation, how much you love God.
Okay, good. All right, we must stay focused. Have you ever lost focus in something you were doing? What happened? You get hurt, okay. What else happened? It doesn't get finished, you know. And it's easy to get distracted. I told you about killing the rats, right? Do you remember that? I was down at Abbeville, Alabama. I went up to the church at Opelika, Alabama, was supporting us down there. And I was really discouraged, and I was involved with this kind of problem, that kind of situation, that situation. I went up and talked to Brother D.B. Jones about it, and Brother D.B. Jones, he said, Bobby, just plow and stop killing the rats. We can get into rat killing and forget that we're supposed to be plowing, right? We need to keep our focus on what's important, and serving and helping and teaching and edifying and building the kind of environment that we need. What thoughts do you have? Y'all mighty quiet this morning. We must have determination, which will go along with the idea of staying focused. Determination, a person can be keeping their mind on what they're doing, but they may not be too determined to get it done. Is that a possibility? It is. You know, I've seen people just go through the motions, and they're still on the focus of doing what they're supposed to do, but they didn't have the heart in it, not determined to see it be done. We need to be people who are determined to see something done. We must be excited or enthusiastic. Anybody ever see the movie? It was a Japanese movie called The Green Slime. Y'all never seen that? Well, it was very contagious, okay? And it would just slide off of something and just get on, and it just multiply and multiply and multiply. And pretty soon it was, the green slime had taken over all Japan, okay? Now, negativism is the green slime. It takes over. You get somebody negative about something, then you're going to have somebody else negative, and pretty soon it may not affect you at first, but you keep on listening to negative stuff, it's going to get off on you. Okay? I don't know how long it's going to take. It may take longer for some than the other, but I guarantee you, you stay around it long enough and listen to it long enough and start repeating it, it's going to be multiplying. And so we have to be excited about the good that we can and we are doing. What do you think?
I'm trying to think of where the verse is that says, whatever is kind, whatever is good. Think on those things.
That's Philippians 4. Yeah, I think about verse 8, 6 through 8, 9 right there, somewhere along that way. So we need to be excited about who we are and what we're doing. Okay. Sir? It is. That's the positive side of the green slime. But yes, it can be, and it should be. You get people, one person excited, and you listen to it long enough, you can be, it can be have a great effect on us. So we need to choose which one we're going to have, right? We need to choose. We're going to be positive, we're going to be negative. Now, we can choose to listen to it or not listen to it. On either one, positive or negative. I think we need the positive more than we do the negative. What do you think? Yeah. A project manager said this: in order to make a project go, first of all, you got to have enthusiasm. Second thing that's going to happen during a project is what? Disillusionment. They get, just, I don't know, why are we doing this? Everybody gets excited. Have you ever seen a project start out in the church, just all excited and everything, and then all of a sudden it requires a lot of work, and you go, man, what have we done? You know? It's like sometimes you start out building a building, and people are all excited about it, and then all of a sudden look around, and I've seen it many times, that everybody in the front just excited about it, getting involved and doing this and doing that. And then after it goes on a little bit, say, man, this is more work than I thought. And then it starts affecting us. Right? Yes, ma'am.
My Christian walk kind of began that way when I finally found this was the truth and this is what I needed to do. But I became disillusioned because I thought everything should be like a rose garden, right? It should be good. And no one pointed to the verses that said, no, that's not what Jesus said it would be.
Well, that's one of our, I think, one of our shortcomings as Christians. Sometimes we leave the idea that once you're a Christian, everything's great, and it is. But we fail to tell them sometimes that, look, things are going to go bad sometimes, you know? And if you let it, the devil's going to get you back into the world. And so we have to keep plugging along, okay? Panic time, how about that? Panic time. I've seen people panic when they're involved in a good work. And they say, ooh. And then, how about this one? Search for the guilty person. Who in the world got us into this? Where is he? I'm going to look under this pew and look in that door, look for him. And they're going to try to place blame. It's not my blame. It's somebody else. Let's go find them. You ever seen that? Yes, it's typical. I don't care if you're talking about church or business or whatever. They're going to assign blame to somebody other than self. And then they're going to punish the innocent. Is that right or wrong? Yeah, I found somebody. It looks like that person's blamed, so let's punish that person. And they do. Brother Mac Layton was a preacher too, you know. And he said this, usually when they start looking for somebody to be guilty and somebody to punish, it's going to be the preacher. Just get rid of it. That's the answer to fixing everything.
Or his children.
Or get to children, that's right. Just get rid of them. We'll just get another one. And then another one comes in, guess what? Same thing. You know? That's not the answer. The answer is working together. If you got a problem, fix it together. And get things going in the right way with everybody working in that direction. And that can happen. And then he says, and praise and honor for the non-participant. Have you seen that one? Yeah. Yeah, the person over here not doing anything, a lot of times the praise and honor is given to that person instead of giving it to the people who did it. Usually there are a lot of good people who works behind the scene and never get recognized for the good works they're doing and have done. Is that a possibility? Yes, it is. Okay. First of all, we need to see a great church must have unity. In Psalm 133 and verse 1, the psalmist says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in what? Unity. And it is. It's very pleasant when you got unity and people working together and getting things done. Okay? And it is good. But have the reverse in what you got. I don't hear anything. It is a beautiful thing to see the church working. Okay? Are you going to have little bumps in the road? Yes. But don't let the bump keep you from doing anything. I have, I park my car, my little car in the garage. I call it my barn. Okay? And as I pull in, I have a board, you know, pretty big, that lets me know when to stop. Okay? The board is large enough that it's very difficult to drive over. You can drive over it, but it's difficult. I know when to stop. Okay? That's a big thing. Now, the church can be like the car in the board. Is the church be going along and doing a good thing, and all of a sudden they run into the board and they stop and they, what am I going to do now? Okay? And a lot of times boards get in the way and keeps the church from accomplishing good works. Okay? I was reading in the book here, and Brother Layton said something to the effect that the church can accomplish some great, great things. But it doesn't take but one or two people to stop it. Over the years, I've been doing this over a year anyway. And I've seen it happen more than once. Okay? I recall where a young preacher was involved in trying to help the educational program of the church in a certain congregation. And somebody didn't like it. Didn't go to the preacher, went to the elders. Okay? And stopped it. That happens. It happens. Listen, good works shouldn't be stopped. I was talking to a brother of mine. He's at the congregation he is now. He's now semi-retired like me. And when he first moved there, he talked and he said, I have one question for you, or I have a question for you. He said, does the 90% or the 10% rule the church? Is that a fair question? He let them know that generally the minority is what stops the good work keeping from happening. And even though there are a lot of people out there supporting, it can come to a screeching halt because of the negative attitude that somebody has about a good work. What's your thoughts? Yes, sir.
I think the thing that bothers me when I have to face judgment, serving as an elder in churches, is the idea of unity.
Yes.
And I think that that's one thing that has hurt the church so much. We just read the Old Testament. We have unity from the beginning to the end. And the other thing that we have, and I forgot how many times, that it talks about patience. We need to be patient and work these problems out.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't work them out. We separate, we do things. And I think it has hurt the church so much. We're going to have to answer for that.
And you're right. In fact, he brought that very thought up in the book. Yes, ma'am.
Every time you're working with people, the hardest thing for them to do is to realize they need to put themselves down and lift up God.
That's very good.
It's the nut of the problem. They'll do anything but have to admit their responsibility, that they might have been wrong, or that they need to change something. And if you see people dancing around, you know that's the problem.
That's
They
good.
have to admit it.
There you go.
How?
Here's a question. I got two things. Yes, ma'am?
I have a problem with the 90-10.
With what?
The 90-10 statement you just.
Oh, you do?
The reason is, I know that's true. I'm not saying it's not true. It's absolutely true. But it's not supposed to be that way.
That's correct.
The elders are to be in charge of the congregation.
Yes.
Not the 90, not the 10.
That's true.
It's their responsibility to listen to the 90, to listen to the 10, and to make the right decision for the congregation.
And you're right. Now, let me add the story that I was going to tell right here. He said there was a brother in the church that was always causing problems, always this and bickering and stopping and trying to gripe. He was griping about this and griping about that. And the elders would go talk with him, but they wouldn't tell him that he was sinning. He needed to stop doing it. That's what elders need to do. If somebody is causing problem in the church, you need to go in a loving, tender, kind way and say, look, we can't do this. This is hurting the church. You need to stop. And furthermore, you need to go before the church and make it right. I'm serious. Anybody who's causing problems in the church, trying to divide it, trying to get their way about things, they need to have an attitude adjustment, and they need to go before the church and beg God's forgiveness and the brethren. Now, let me tell you the rest of the story. He said the man died, and the elder felt guilty that he never told that man to stop his division. And you will. People who divide the church, split the church, listen how I'm going to say this, and I want to say it rightly, in my judgment, are some of the worst people in the world. They don't care about God, they don't care about the church, they don't care about Christ, they don't care about converting people, and they need to be confronted very kindly, but yet let them know very clearly that they are sinning. What's your thoughts? Now, that takes courage. That's not an easy thing to do, to try to help a brother or sister to get back on the right road. And sometimes people attend services every time the door, it still cause problems. Okay? And we can't allow problems rule the church. It won't grow. People run from it. They don't want to be a part of it. It's a church, a congregation gets a bad name. It takes years sometimes to overcome it because one or two people causing problems in the church. It's I don't want to go there. There's problems down there. You ever heard that? I have.
We like to exhort, but we don't like to rebuke.
That's correct. That's correct. And rebuking is not an easy thing to do. I don't like it, but sometimes I see that I have to. Okay?
And we have a God mandate to do it.
That's correct. Especially the eldership. Well, I wouldn't say including the eldership, I should say. They have a responsibility to do that. Yes, ma'am.
And a lot of times, people's personality, what they get used to, how do they get used to dealing with people, they never realize that they're not ready. My mom set me on track once when I was a little kid. When I was complaining, she said, Mary, did you ever think it's not the whole world, it might be you? I remember that my whole life, and I try to keep that in mind if I find myself complaining a lot.
That's a good point. Yeah, we need to ask, is it me? That's right. That's a good, very good point. I like that. Now, listen, all of us can be wrong. Yes. All of us can be wrong about something, but here's the deal. We need to ask this question when something, it may be just an opinion, whatever. We need to see, is it worth it to cause a problem in the church if it's not a doctrinal thing? What do you think? That's the first question. Is this a doctrinal matter or is this a judgment matter? Is it a doctrinal matter or is this an opinion? And we may need to make a distinction. And if it's a doctrinal matter, then we need to stand firm and let the people know that are teaching something contrary to the teachings of Christ, that you can't do that. In fact, you'll lose your soul. What do you think? I was reading the book and he talked about, let me see, I may be getting ahead of myself. Let me go ahead, if I got it right here. He said, here it is, talking about unity. Fielding Yost, he was the head coach, I don't know when, of the Michigan football team, and they went undefeated one year. And they wanted to interview him, and the guy interviewed him, he said, Coach, why do you think that the team was so successful this year? And he said, I think the speech, 2-hour speech I give to the team before the season starts. And what's the lesson that you teach? It's love. Love? How can you, rough guys love? What do you mean? And he said this, the love of the game, the love to win, and the love of the teammates. Does that work? Do we love what we're doing? Do we love to win people to Christ? Do we love each other? A new commandment I give unto you, that you what? Love one another as I have loved you. And by this all men shall know that you are my disciples if you what? Love one another. So I think in principle what the coach said applies to the church. Love what we're doing. Love to win people. Win the problems. Win victory over problems. And love one another. I think that's what makes a church be the kind of church that God wants. What's your thoughts?
Most of the problems that I've heard is minute things that don't matter. That flower behind you, I think it should be a different color, or it should be to the right or to the left.
Yeah.
Or that color of the wall, I don't like it.
Uh-huh.
Just things that don't matter. I mean, we sure don't do that in our marriages, or we'd be married.
Yeah, that's the reason why we need to ask, does it matter? What I don't like, does it really matter? What's it going to do to the church? If I cause a ruckus about it, if you allow me to use that word. The church is much more important than my opinion, your opinion. Going to heaven is more important than our judgments about things. So that's very, very important that we understand that. Have you? When I was over I've never literally, except one time in my life, I went to this, where orchestra was, over in Kyiv. They have a lot of, they have it up in New York somewhere, where they have the music. Listen, huh? Yeah, theaters. I went to one time, over there. Well, I went twice. Went to a play, and it was all in a Ukrainian language. And I had an interpreter over here telling me what was going on. I still don't know what was going on because I had a heavy accent but anyway, it was just to watch them, what they're doing, how in harmony it was, and everything was done exactly when it was. I went to a theater that had music, and you had each one of those instruments, knew when to play, what to play, in harmony. Each one of them had a part to do, and they did it beautifully. Same way with the church. We all have a part to do, and when we do our part in harmony, it makes a beautiful, beautiful sound, if you will. Yes, ma'am?
Before an orchestra begins to play, they always do what's called tune. They play usually a middle C, and they'll see if their tune combines nicely with the tunes.
That's correct.
You always hear that.
That's correct. But when they start, is much, much, much harmony. Here's something I want you to remember. When you find people griping and complaining, ask them what they're doing for the church. Yes, ma'am.
Even not in church, you find a complainer, they're willing to speak out, so put them in charge of something. And give them the guidelines of how they have to, produce. But that really works, because then they find their purpose, and they're not just sitting back assessing the lack of purpose. You see what I'm saying?
I do. I think your point is well taken. What I'm saying is this. Usually people who are not doing anything are the people who are complaining. Give them something to do, like you said. And that usually takes away the griping and complaining about things. The curse of division. It's a work of the flesh. Turn with me to somebody turn to Galatians chapter 5 and verse 20, and read verse 20 for me in Galatians 5. And let's see, is that a work of the flesh? I think he starts in verse 21 or 19. Now the works of the flesh is, and it's included in verse 20 what? Start at verse 19, somebody.
Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife,
There it is, strife. Go ahead.
sedition,
Sedition,
heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God.
and that's the key. When people are calling strife and division in the church, they cannot go to heaven. Isn't that what that passage says? And we need to understand that. And we need not allow that to happen. In fact, James says it is devilish and hateful. Look at James chapter 3, verses 14 through 16. Anybody have it?
But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic.
He said, hey, it's devilish. It's hurtful. And we need to understand the seriousness of it. How about this one? Division causes unbelief. Would that be true? How about John chapter 20? No, 17. Verses 20 through 21. Anybody have it?
Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their word, that they may all be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me.
So that's the intent that our Lord had when he was walking on this earth before he was crucified. He said, I want you to be united. I want you to be united based upon the Word. Now let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 10 through 13. The house of Chloe, you remember that? I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you all what? Speak the same thing, that there be no divisions among you. Is that what it says?
Now I plead with you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. For it has been declared to me concerning you, my brethren, by those of Chloe's household, that there are contentions among you. Now I say this, that each of you says, I am of Paul, or I am of Apollos, or I am of Cephas, or I am of Christ.
So he said very clearly he wanted them to be united, but it's called, turn over to chapter 3, verses 1 through 3. Mm-hmm.
And I, brethren, could not speak to you as to spiritual people, but as to carnal, as to babes in Christ. I fed you with milk and not with solid food, for until now you were not able to receive it, and even now you are still not able, for you are still carnal. For where there are envy, strife, and divisions among you, and are you not carnal and behaving like mere men?
So there are two things I want to get from that verse. Well, from chapter 1, he's pleading for unity. Chapter 3, he's saying, hey, you're divided. There's two problems here. Number one, you're a bunch of babies. Church babies divide. Isn't that right? People who can't see past themselves, they cause problems. They gripe and they complain and discourage. Okay? But we need to understand that it is a bad thing for people to divide the church. It's devilish. It's hateful. And it destroys the church. What thoughts do you have?
Not all of that, especially in Corinthians. One of you says, I'm Paul, another Apollos, another Apollos, Cephas, or Peter. That Christ cannot be divided. So there should not be any congregation other than the church of Christ.
Very good. I like that. Very good. In fact, you can add 1 Corinthians 12:27 to that one right there, and along with what we talked about. Listen, when I read the book of 1 Corinthians, I see all kinds of problems. I mean, serious stuff taking on that's really destroying them. But when I get to 2 Corinthians, a whole different tone. Apparently, by the time we got to 2 Corinthians, that a lot of the problems or the sins and division that they had in the church were resolved by the time you get to, although they had a couple of things in the book of 2 Corinthians, but nothing like you have in 1 Corinthians. Altogether different tone not difficult, but teachings he had in the book of 2 Corinthians. Well, I didn't get finished. We'll pick up from there if that's okay with y'all for next week. Is that good? Thank you very much.